Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the FTD Virtual Design Show titled Valentine's Day Trends with Keith, featuring FTD Education Consultant J. White AIFD. This design show series is a way to keep us all connected, be inspired, and share knowledge and solutions to solve problems. We are excited to welcome Keith live today from his home state of Texas, where he will be showcasing 4 distinctive color and style trends for Valentine's Day. In addition, Keith will be demonstrating floral design tips and techniques to help you have a successful start to 2021. Once Keith is finished with his presentation, we will open up the session for questions. If you have a question, simply type it in the chat box in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to submit your questions during the presentation. The session will be recorded. So let's get started, everyone. Welcome, Keith.
Thanks so much, Janet. And what a way to start the new year by an FTD education program featuring the American Floral Trends Forecast. I'm coming to you live from Houston School of Flowers. So not only is education a passion of mine, but a love of flowers also. And working with American Floral Trends as creative director, it's a way to say, hello, New Year. And one of the points I really want to get across is people are always concerned with trends. How do I apply them to my everyday work and now to Valentine's for 2021? Well, I just have a quick saying. If red roses are never out of fashion, but if you compare flowers to music, old hits continue to sell and new tunes stimulate sales. So that's what it's about today, is stimulating your sales with the new and current trends that are not only for color palettes, but also design, styles, and again, the tips and techniques that go into it. Of course, you can see everything in print magazines with American Floral Trends Forecast, but the question is, how did they do that? So today's lesson also is how to be able to do these designs, once again, in a speedy fashion, because we're working for Valentine's Day and in a setting that we need to pick up the pace. Maybe we've been a bit lackluster all year because we had some time off or some free time, but we all know that. So now it's time to pick up the pace, get with the trends, and present them to your customer base. So with our first trends, we have the 4 trends behind me. And each one of these trends have 7 color palettes based in it. When people see the color palettes, and these are based off of Design Master Paints, when you see the color palettes, you go, like Metropolitan, you're looking at antique gold, which I've chosen the FTD Signature Collection, which has the gold finished, hammered finish down at the base of it. But you look at the colors that were important prior that move forward. So you have colors that move into year to year. So we have Coral Bright, Blue Violet, Blue Marlin, Pacific Blue, Robin's Egg Blue, and Sprout, that beautiful green color that really makes all the other colors around it pop. So we'll begin with a selection of floral materials that I have here. And the first one I'm going to do is a hand-tied bouquet. So we'll start out with cool water roses. I'm going to add a little bit of the green trick in there, which is for the sprout. So we're going to be focusing today on a dual color palette. So we're going to be keeping sprout, the mini hydrangea, going into it. And then also we're going to be keeping the lavenders or purple tones coming into it. It's very, very difficult to be able to achieve that blue palette. But this past week, it's always a learning process for me also. I found this great delphinium. This particular one is called Japan. So I hope it's available for you because, other people have said, oh, I want to order that. Oh my God. And it's long lasting. We've done a test on it already. So it's I want to say the non-shed variety because we so work with delphinium that sheds. One of the things when you're doing design work is sometimes to keep things in tighter groupings. They give more of an impact when you're designing with it. So by bringing in even 3 cool water roses and 3 cool water roses next to each other, the palette is very strong that way, and it's not confusing. Even though this is considered quote unquote a mixed arrangement, it really is more in groupings. So now I'm going to add a little bit of spice to it, which is, this one is called the wabi-sabi rose. So that's why I say add a little spice to your designs too when you're working with it. So once again, I'm keeping the green palettes closer and tighter together. I brought in the blue, and now I'm going to start adding some of the more blue-violet tones or purple tones. I have this particular Dianthus. This is a Canadian Dianthus. And again, bringing in tighter groupings. So maybe 2 stems, bringing in just a little bit more on the opposite sides to round out the design itself. And now I have a softness. And when you look at softness in design work, this brings it to more of an organic feeling. So the organic feeling is what's in today in design. Make sure you get depth into your design work. Hypericum, one of our staple flowers within the floral industry. So it adds that, once again, a berry to the design itself. So I'm going to put those in. A lot of people will say, oh, stock is a lined flower, and I'm going to shoot it out of the arrangement. But for this one, I'm going to bring it off to the edge and use it more as a collaring. But it's going to be able to accentuate and have the arrangement appear larger in that particular vase in the signature collection. One of the things that you always have to check your emails. I checked mine just a little bit ago, and I got an email from FTD Flower Exchange, and they're having a special on stock, 10% off early orders. So here I am with the stock, putting in 6 stems, once again, 2, 2, and 2, to kind of round out the bouquet itself. So that's an important item. Always check your emails about what FTD is new and exciting, because there's a lot of things happening for 2021. When you're looking at newer things also, like I discovered the delphinium, I also discovered this foliage. It's called Green Dragon. So this, once again, is going to help give me that little bit of organic feel to the design, soften some of the edges up, and by bringing in just that little bit of it. One of the #1 foliages for consumers, and I think also florists, is the eucalyptus. So I'm putting the euc around the outer edge of the design itself, just tucking in a few pieces. One thing to remember at Valentine's, just with your everyday work, is don't overamp some of the foliages. Let them work for you and let them show. Don't hide all your foliages or think you need the foliages as support materials. So I'm just going to soften some of the edges by bringing in the depth of the design. Just pull in and out just a few of the flowers. This is a hand-tied bouquet, and normally you would take it and wrap it and bind it up. But since this is going in this FTD signature collection vase, what I'm going to do is measure it by hand, give it a good cut at the base. Instead of binding, once again, a labor-saving tip is to literally hold it in my hand and then what I call drop it in the vase. And so the design is already completed. And so now we have all those colors of Metropolitan happening, and you can make a little bit of fine-tune changes. But again, beautiful collections, and now you can see how grouping materials help so much when you're doing design work, and especially in vase work. So that's a great tip. Like items closer together are going to give you more of that visual impact. Don't forget about wonderful ribbons that can be added either to your container choices or even into the design itself. Ribbons are not a thing that's out of trend. they're very much in trend when you're doing the design work. So this particular one for Metropolitan gives me those two color palettes. Basically, I'm sticking with purple and blues, and then the lavender shades, which when you're doing combinations, this has been a real winning combination for Valentine's, not only in the past, but I see it in the future and for this particular Valentine's Day. When you're working in trend palettes and you look at the promenade trend and where we're going with promenade, it's curating legacies. And when you're looking at the palette for promenade, a lot of it has to do with like a champagne gold instead of an antique gold. Honeycomb is a new color introduced by Design Master for 2020. It's that soft, buttery yellow color. We also have blush that was such popular throughout not only wedding work, but also into daily work. We have, and when I looked at the color and we were working with the whole creative team and all the trend consultants, the term Oceana Peach, oh my God, that brings back to old school. It's like when I started with FTD probably 25 plus years ago. But when you're looking at the name Oceana Peach, don't let it scare you. But their new color is called Peachy also. And then we have almond and we have beach. And one of the key items with the trends that are happening is, of course, what? The compote design. So this particular one, an accent decor piece, I want to work in materials that are really in those very muted tones. So one of the current design trends and styles that is happening is we want to look at kind of an arrangement that looks like one of this, one of that, but everything is carefully thought out. So we have some different kinds of items, such as the Dusty Miller, a little bit of fern. I have, because from the south, we have magnolia in the south. And what you want to do with this design is you want to begin with framing the design in. So I'm going to start framing this particular design with the magnolia and a little bit of the Italian, the Israeli Ruskas happening. So now I have my framework built into the design, streaming out here. Instead of the old rule, it has to be 1.5 times the size of the container. This particular design style is almost in a reverse fashion, where the center of the design is lower than the middle portion of that design. So we're going to begin with our framework once again, and then I'm going to bring in some beautiful, beautiful O'Hara garden roses. And when you're working with the garden rose or with other roses in this particular design style, stem placement is so, so important when you're doing the designing. So with the garden roses, those are our standout flower, but we're going to do some integrated stem placement, which means we're not designing radial. We're crossing over some of the stems by integrating those stem placements into the floral foam. This container actually holds a half a block of floral foam. So it gives me a nice base to start with in the design itself. And then we're going to take in, I've heard so many people and see orders come across, the design table. No carnation in my arrangement. But how could you resist these heirloom carnations? Beautiful, beautiful combinations, the peach tones all the way down to that honeycomb color, that yellow coloration into it. So I'm going to combine some of these right into the design. Once again, keeping in a cross fashion of stem placements and the integration of the stems themselves into the design. You can see I'm working on the front and back side at the same time. And also I'm inserting the flowers, all of the flowers that are alike all at once. Does that make sense to everybody? Instead of putting one rose here, of all different varieties. I'm putting the full varieties into the design itself instead of, it's a lot faster to do and you can finish out a lot faster your design work. So once again, just incorporating these heirloom carnations into the design mix. We have another rose. Some people consider it a garden rose, but this is Free Spirit. It has a nice color palette to it, really more like a tricolor instead of just a bicolor rose that we're working into the design itself. So this is going to give me that peachy and Oceana color that we've talked about with the design master colorations that are happening. Make sure you give your flowers enough breathing space. Remember, flowers open, and especially like these garden roses, how much space you're going to have into the design itself. This particular rose Lydia, we're going to add in. It's a very, very soft, almost a lavender pink color to it. It gives us that blush feeling to the design. And we're going to go ahead and use all four of those into the design itself. I'm bringing up to keep my framing happening and keeping the lower center point. This particular rose is called Quicksand, and sorry about that, Quicksand, and we're going to also bring it in an upward motion. It's a beautiful, beautiful rose that opens incredibly well. One of the things too with Valentine is that longevity of floral materials that you have that people are always concerned with. All the flowers that I'm using today I've really tested them out. So the longevity is really, really good on it. Care and handling is very important in your materials when you're getting it in, especially for the holiday season. Make sure you do processing correctly in your flowers and the temperatures are good on the materials that you're using. Check to see if things should be left out a little bit to hydrate versus throwing everything in the cooler so fast before it has a chance to hydrate. So it depends on the flowers that you have about care and handling. So make sure you know care and handling tips for all the different varieties of flowers that you're going to be getting in. This particular spray rose that I'm adding in now is Ilse, and it adds the same kind of coloration or color palette that works with the Free Spirit rose. You can see the Free Spirit, how the colors all start joining together. Really a beautiful, beautiful combination. One of the key flowers, again, in Promenade is the rose lily. So we're going to be bringing that rose lily into the design itself. And I'm going to be bringing that, let's see, because of the positioning of it, I'm going to bring it out just a little bit more because it's such a specialty type of flower. And it can be off to one side. I have also the Ranunculus in cream, and I'm going to be bringing these, instead of in a downward position, I'm going to be bringing these more in a flat positioning coming out, where I create a plane with these particular flowers. And I'm going to keep continuing to grow the arrangement outward now, instead of all inward into the design itself. Bringing in the Ranunculus adds that garden feeling to it. So one of the influences with this particular design is not only the French Beaux Arts, but also kind of an Edwardian period. I don't like to waste things. People know me in design work and they go, oh my God, you just use everything up. And I say, of course I do. It's part of the flower. So by keeping even the buds of the Ranunculus growing together, we've done really well. This particular foliage is called Italian Ruskas. You might think of it as a bright green, but this one is bleached. And so, again, it's something that's a little bit more interesting to the consumer instead of something they might have seen. It might even be more interesting to a florist because they've never seen it. It's a great item. So It's not like it's a dried material, but it's a bleached material that is kept in the cooler also. So I'm going to bring in some old school greens into it. Then I'm going to give it a touch of the seeded eucalyptus. When you're adding seeded eucalyptus to it, make sure you kind of give it a haircut at the end so you have some of the seed showing. That's the important part of the design itself, is putting these seeds into it and letting them show. We also have a little piece of Dusty Miller. And when you're planning recipes for this thing, sometimes it's like, how do you account for like one of everything, one of this, one of that? It's simple to do. Just add one instead of other items. And that's the recipe part of it, is when you're doing recipes for this, make sure you make it easy on yourself. And so if you're using 3 roses, 5 roses, kind of work in numbers that are acceptable as far as the bunches go with it. Then I'm going to add in a little bit of the sword fern to the design itself, which will help soften, some of the edges. And then once again, just a piece of the silver dollar eucalyptus brought into the design. And then we'll have a completed design, with the exception of one thing. You have to remember, it's Valentine's Day. Can you see that? My heart. So I brought in just a little bit of heart work. It's not tacky, tasteful is the term. So now I have promenade design completed in a compote of these beautiful soft pastel palettes. When you're looking at bold and bright and exploration, think of it as creative mining. When you do creative mining, I chose a container that was a rectangular form. And of course, the red rose is so symbolic. And you look at the color palette of exploration, and we have what is called yellow, tangerine, the orange, but we also have what is called carnation red. So I'm going to bring that carnation red in, and this particular rose is Explora. It opens really, really large, but it's a cool rose. Make sure you give it time to open. And again, it's that longevity at the holiday time that people are looking for. Explorer is a long-lasting red rose that can be used for the holiday. So I'm bringing in just a few red roses. I don't want to give the other side of the arrangement away, so I hope you don't mind me working on one-sided this particular design. I have the Rockstar Pink Floyd that's brought into here. So now we get to that fuchsia that's part of the trend palette. And we have purple, but we're going to shy away from that because we've already covered that. So when you're designing things for your website, make sure you don't overlap some things. Make sure they have enough difference between each one, because then it becomes very confusing for the customer. So if you have palettes that are very powerful and very strong, like this particular one for exploration, it's a sure winner. People will gravitate towards some of the cool things and cool palettes that you're working with. Spray roses, we're going to also incorporate those into our design. They kind of cross over and give us that feeling of different size, scale, and proportion for each one of the flowers. We also have a red tulip that we're going to be putting into the design. Remember, tulips in design work, they will continue to stretch each day. So be careful with your placements, especially if you're designing in advance, which most of us will do for Valentine's, is try to design a little bit of this work in advance. Keeping these once again in groupings is going to surely help the impact and keep our palettes very, very strong. So I'm going to bring in like 3 tulips next to each other in this design. And then I'm going to bring in maybe a couple on one side and one on the other. So maybe just 5 tulips in the design itself. We also have the Ranunculus and red Ranunculus. I'm going to use those to be able to give us, once again, a little bit of freedom and a little bit of motion. I love the movement that these have naturally. My old saying is, let nature work for you, not against you. So don't fight the flowers. When they want to do something on their own, let them do their thing. It's like, you know, having restrictions on you. So just do the flowers naturally as they come. I'm going to add in, as the quote unquote filler flower, I'm going to use Dianthus. This is that fuchsia color, and it's called Gypsy. It's a great kind of item other than the norm that people might not have seen. Of course, Dianthus is in that carnation family once again. So people are, you know, not aware that this is a carnation going into their design or within the carnation family. So it's kind of cool to sneak some of these items into your design work that you're doing. Once again, a hedge type of an arrangement, but you can see the arrangement, it has a lot of movement to it. And I'm going to spin this around because when you choose containers, just something as simple as this black box, you want to add some embellishments to it. So this one, I added in 3 hearts that were simply placed on the container itself using what is called dashes or U-glue from Oasis. And it's a craft heart out of foam that are readily available at your local wholesaler. So shopping at your local wholesaler is another good avenue. Make sure you're good friends with them, because like here at Houston School of Flowers, I work closely with Pikes Peak Wholesale. And so again, they give not, you know what people are carrying, what they have, and again, how they expect you to design what you might like, and how you keep your standards up when ordering flowers. So when I order from Pikes, they know it's for me, they know what I like, and they know the quality that I want. So it's just a kind of a cool way of getting to know personally your sales rep and have them cater to you. Because yes, you are the customer. Just like with FTD Flower Exchange, there's certain things, and I say, don't put all your eggs in one basket. So here's exploration, creative mining by adding just a few of the little hearts on the front. And once again, the U-glue and just a little bit of heart, one dash, that's all it takes to have your design finished. So eliminating a lot of the colors that are in exploration, I still was able to capture the ice blue and the purple just in the hearts that go on the container itself. When you look at plants and plant giving, and when one of my favorite lines to use on cards was just because, and I think that applies to today, is those just because designs that you want to sell. So this is the FTD signature container. I added a galvanized heart. I actually put in some succulents into this, into a planter, made it a planter box instead of a floral box. And gift giving is one of those important things. And don't forget to have this on your website for Valentine's, is some type of succulent planter, because it is that just because gift. And gift giving is going to be very important this Valentine's Day, not only for your significant other, but for friends that might have helped you out all year. It's that thank you kind of gift without saying, I love you with red roses. Now for the last design, and they said, oh, you have 30 minutes. I'm getting close. We want to look at territory. And territory is what I call fields to florists. Everything that's in field flowers. And we have this beautiful earthy color palette, earth tone color palette. From the light ochre, which is I'm going to be using the Macara orchids. And then we have wonderful foliages such as grevillea, pepperberry, some Australian pines. The grevillea is cool items. We have also gold Inca, and it has that yellow cast to it without being so harsh in it. One of the key items is that kind of combination of proteaceous materials like the Inca, and then also we have the actual proteas mixed in with roses versus the pincushion protea. So it's going to give us a different look and a different kind of palette that goes together. So with the proteaceous material, I want to be able to keep those, once again, in a little bit tighter grouping, but yet kind of a little bit freeform when I'm doing the placements of the materials. We have the flame, calla, and the calla, once again, I'm going to be inserting those as groupings. And if you know how to massage, we all need a massage every now and then. You can massage the callas to get them to kind of take shape and shape the direction you want those particular florals to go into. So keeping this one more in groupings and time-saving efforts, and you know if you saw the special on January 1st, the Tournament of Roses that's sponsored by FTD, I do this in groupings of 12 on the cars, FYI. So that's how we get so many flowers in. And Pete's well aware of that when we're doing and working on those cars is how to speed it up. So one of the things with the flowers is go ahead and almost design them in your hand, make a cut, and then there's your floral materials. Your stems are already ready to go. So once again, if someone's watching you and saying, I'm paying how much for them to design, that you're a fast designer. Back again, I'm going to be putting in the pincushion protea into the design itself. I'm going to bring in a couple of things a little bit shorter. Now I have my groupings together of materials, and I'm going to bring in a little bit of the grevillea foliage to give us my size, the extension of the design itself that comes around to the outer edging. So an interesting serrated foliage that's not so common to a lot of people. A lot of florists have been using this now, but now it's one of those key items. I think it's so much like eucalyptus to me. I'll use that in great quantities, and it's a cool foliage. Back again, the gold Inca, I'm going to take a grouping of it and cut to my desired length. Then I'm going to be placing in. Remember depth and design work. Back again, I've talked about it briefly, a little bit here and there, but make sure your groupings, if you're doing that, are strong groupings. Don't make a weak arrangement. So even though you do one of this and one of that, if you do 3 or 4 of the same, these all came off of one stem, I'm utilizing it into the design work as one stem back again. It's almost like taking something apart and putting it back together. The little bit of pine has the same thing, lots of laterals and stems. So I'm going to cut this down to a very sharp positioning. And instead of making one insertion, I'm going to do it all at once into the design, which brings it all back together again. It's faster. And that's what I keep stressing about Valentine's Day is, yes, you can have all these trendy, unique designs, but yet work in a very fast situation. So something that gives us a little bit more of a movement, a taller piece. One thing about Macara orchids is I learned from Event Company, we take those in half, cut those into 2 pieces. So we have 2 individual pieces. Then bring them into the design work. And it's just what I was saying. So it's kind of like you're reassembling it once you put it into the design itself. So back again, take this into 1 or 2 pieces into the design. Remember the colors are important placements into the design. The yellow is going to draw your eye up into the design itself. I'm going to turn that around for you. You can see that. And then the last floral material we're going to put into the design is going to be our Ranunculus. These are beautiful shades of terracotta that are part of it, and the color that's used in territory is called red clay. We also have this rose that fits the gamut of what is called heatherish, and that is that new color for Design Master for 2020, which was introduced, so it'll continue on through 2021. By bringing in, once again, just a little bit of the buds to the design. They're part of the Ranunculus, so I'm going to include those into my design work. You can see the edging on here, bringing those out. You can see how they play into the design. Let's put this one over here. It looks like it wants to play well with those three on that side. And then we're going to bring in a little bit of the one piece, and that's what I want to get to the bottom line with all of this is sometimes it just takes one piece of something to really make the arrangement work. So just one piece of pepperberry brought in, one little clustering of wax flower will help bridge some of these other floral materials together. And tighter groupings is so important when you're doing this type of design. Here is some willow yew, so another form of eucalyptus that's very powerful and very important for trends. So by bringing in, once again, just a couple of little groupings of this, the design is finished out. And to finish out this particular design, I took the rustic wire and I coiled it. And as you can see, one more, another heart brought into the design itself. It fits the territory perfectly well. And now you have the completed finished look for Valentine's. And remember that first saying I said, red roses are never out of fashion. But if you compare flowers to music, old hits continue to sell, and new tones and tunes stimulate sales. So it's very important to remember all the materials that are available to you for this Valentine's, but it's up to you to stay open and deliver on Sunday. It's part of our business. We want the business, so make sure you are open and you're willing to deliver on Sunday, because with all the surveys and studies, the demand is going to be there for us, designers and florists, for Valentine's. So I wish you well for Valentine's 2021. Take the trends, work with them. They're available. The full brochure is available online at Florist Review if you need to find that. Also, FTDI.com has links to some of these things, and this will be recorded. I know it was a fast movement, but I hope you enjoyed all the designs today that were completed for each one of the trends. And again, thank you, and we'll take questions now.
Wow, Keith, thanks. That was awesome. I loved seeing all of the latest color and style trends and how you were spinning that. Do you have I've got a handful of questions here for you. One of them, do you have an idea, like who would you recommend each of those designs? Like, is one of them better for dad to give to his daughter, or, you know, anything like that? I don't know for each of those.
Well, because of the trends are so varied and each one has its individual style and design, but a lot of it is based on color. So when you're gift giving, if it's dad to daughter, you know, I would definitely stay away from the traditional red rose. I think if it's for a daughter, depending on the age, I would stick with something like exploration. Make it bright, make it fun, make it joyous.
Great, thanks. In the Metropolitan design, what were the blue flowers that you used for that one?
Oh, the blue flowers, that new flower that I found last week. It is actually delphinium, and the name of it is Japan, like the country.
Okay, great.
Yeah, cool. I hope you can order it and get it. being on the California Cut Flower Commission for so many years, we had introduced new product and it was like nowhere to be found, like green dragon. Oh my God, I love that foliage in there too. So.
Great. What is a good date to bring your flowers in for Valentine's Day?
Well, because of Valentine's falling on a Sunday this year, it depends on your volume that you're going to be doing. And with that particular volume or sales expectations that you've set for yourself, check with, FTD once again to see their best sellers and what their predictions are too of where you can get flowers, as far as the day they come in. I would suggest something like this with this year, since on a Sunday, Monday for a lot of your products, so you can get it hydrated properly and take your time, that you're not so rushed, and the care and handling process of it. So Monday, Tuesday would be fine.
Okay, great. The promenade design, and this is going to come up with a couple of these, gorgeous arrangement, but they're wondering, what would you sell it for? And I know that's kind of a loaded question depending on where you are in the country and, big city, small town.
My question is, did you fly me first class to your shop to be a contract designer, or is someone building? No, one of the things too with the design work is I tried to keep the designs within a reasonable shape. I do work behind a design table at a retail florist for Valentine's Greens here in Houston. So when you look at price points, SAF gave some great estimates of pricing, what people are going to spend. The very young generation, they're expecting to spend about $100. The older generation, which like Promenade, not that that's for old people by any stretch of the mind, but when you're looking at that, their guidelines, they were going to spend in the range of $300. So there was that gap between age groups, from very young to, I want to say, my age. So yeah, I'll include myself in that. So when you look at those price points, I think we need to sell up higher on some of those things. Of course, carnations and regular roses versus do you want to put in garden roses? Because we know what those cost. They're beautiful, but yet customers are loving those and are demanding those, just like a peony would be. So again, price some things a little bit higher. And again, depending on your compote and size, you can tailor that design in and out. I just wanted to blow that one out of the water today for you and get the price point way up there. Because sometimes we're afraid to charge too much or put a higher price on some things. And we don't want to do that this year, especially.
Right. Just as a reminder, we've got a few more questions, but if anybody else does have a question, just type it in that chat box and we will be sure to ask Keith. One of the questions, the exploration design, what's the name of the spray roses in that design?
What? Lindy.
Splendid.
Splendy. S like splendid, but splendy.
Okay.
They're a pink. They're a hotter pink color. Splendy.
All right. And then we have another question with the local wholesalers. They love their local wholesalers, but they don't, they've not seen them carry any of the foam craft accessories. Have you gotten those at Michael's, Dollar Tree? I'm not sure where you.
This particular one, Houston, of course, is a very large metropolitan area. So, I mean, we have over 7 million people. So yes, depending on where you are, there are different wholesalers here for the floral industry that might not be in other select cities, that those types of things are available. So you might have to check. Again, if you go to a craft store and want to check that out, please do. Or, if you have the time and energy, like this particular heart I put in here, remember your labor costs and material costs on all this. A purchase pick versus a handmade pick. This is going to sell for a lot more than the pick that I used in Promenade. I just want to make sure you get that point across too, to allow for your labor. And when you get creative, that you're charging for it. This is custom made by Keith White.
Ah, that's high value there. Yeah, that's definitely a good point. Lot of questions about, and love the time-saving grouping idea. So just for clarity, you were arranging it in your hand and cutting 3 or 4 stems at a time, and then you were inserting them at once, or just kind of all?
Depending on the floral material, like the roses, I did as individual insertions. Like the Inca, I did that literally all at once. The foliage, I did it all at once. And again, Pete can attest to my speed and learning, with Tournament of Roses. It was one of those learning lessons, and that's part of education, is like this program is passing those little techniques on to you. It does make design go a lot faster.
Yep. And then the last arrangement that you did for territory.
Yes.
I know, again, this is the price thing, a suggestion on what that would retail for. It's gorgeous.
Well, I have, if you look at the rose count, I have 7 roses, 3 macaras, 2 of the proteas, they're the small ones, 2 pincushions, and 5 ranunculus. And then I have my foliages. One of the things that I not only, because with Houston School of Flowers, I teach advanced and certification courses. And one of my advanced classes I purchase protea bouquets that come with all the foliages. So again, my price control is there. I know what the bouquet is going to have in it. And it's a lot of times it's so much less expensive for me to buy the bouquets with all the material mix in it than it is for me to purchase each individual item. Again, it works well, not only for daily work, but for holiday work when you're really severely under that price control. You have to be price controlled on these designs. So check again, I get those brought in from Pikes Peak, Houston.
All right. And then do you use charcoal in your planters?
Charcoal in this planter? No. Like I know what you're talking about. But no. On this one, I use dirt from my farm that I live on. And I actually, if you can believe it, grew all these succulents myself.
Wow, really?
Yes, from leaves. Yay! I'm a farmer, florist, designer.
Keith, you do it all. Somebody who was asking about the charcoal said, Amy said she was trying to find it and it was really expensive. What would be the benefit of using charcoal?
A lot of it has to do, I remember that from years ago, the charcoal part of it, a lot of it is for water too, but for, I don't want to say fragrance, but for drainage. But I use pebbles and rocks, and I use a very, besides dirt from my farm, for this particular planter. If not, I would use a potting soil that has more of a potting mix for succulents. It's actually sold under different names, but look for it. It's a potting soil specifically made for succulents. So most likely it had some sand in it, maybe some vermiculite, that it's going to stay, I want to say, because they don't need to be very wet. You don't need to water succulents and cactus a lot. That's why they're so popular. People can take care of them. And again, that longevity of that type of planter for someone.
Okay, yeah, it looks like she was commenting too that, it helps with the smell from sitting water in your planters and that.
Oh, see, yes, it does. It does.
So, all right. Well, it looks like we are out of questions for today. We just want to thank everyone for attending today's virtual design show. As we mentioned a couple of times, a recording will be available on demand on the FTD Mercury Network Florist YouTube channel. And our next FTD Virtual Design Show is scheduled for Wednesday, March 3rd. FTD Education Consultant Ann Jordan, AIFD, will be back with us, and she'll be sharing some design ideas and tips for body flowers. Everybody's been asking about body flowers. So just again, thank you, everyone. Best wishes for a wonderful start to 2021.